It's estimated that over 40 million lawsuits are filed every year in the United States. Now, I realize that a certain percentage of these lawsuits are probably corporate or copyright or IP or maybe highly specialized. But 40 million is a big number. There should be no shortage of work here, folks. So what's up? Why do we keep having the same conversations about SEO versus PPC versus TV versus whatever the latest, greatest new thing is as being the best way to find new clients? Are we missing something? Maybe something you already have but don't know how to use effectively? Well, that's what we're talking about today on Lawsome, how to properly leverage your intake and referrals and get the maximum value out of what you already have. You ready? Let's go.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by Consultwebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast that prefers to receive emails via pager. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in personal and professional developments. I am Jake Sanders, soul brother number 4. And with me is the Sultan of SEO, Paul Julius. Paul, how you doing?
I'm crazy busy here at Paul Julius SEO.
All SEO must go.
Must go. We over ordered from the factory, and so we're trying to clear out all this SEO we got laying around.
And this isn't your grandma's SEO factory. No
man.
Way. What's on the show today?
On the show today, we talk about what sets a world-class intake department apart from the forgettable crowd with an article from growpath.com. Then we chat with Maddie Martin from Smith AI about intake, marketing, referrals, and law firm growth. And as always, we test our guests' resolve with 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The Hot Take Buffet today is on growpath.com. It's by Jim Farron, CEO of Growpath, who's president and founder of the law offices of James Scott Farron. And his law firm has recovered more than $1 billion in gross for over 43,000 clients over the last 20 years. He's down here at the bottom of that blog just looking smug.
Is he paying you or something, man?
No, I thought it was funny because guess what? I've never heard of Growpath.
Right?
So that's amazing that you made billions of dollars. I don't know who you are, but
allegedly.
Right. But this blog is actually fantastic. This is a really cool site. But it gives 5 qualities that define a world-class law firm intake department from Jim Farron. And I'll go over them briefly. 1, they take training seriously. 2, they provide quality experience. 3, they're able to easily identify and prioritize leads. 4, they excel at workflow management. 5, they find cases that they didn't know they had. I have a hot take on this. I think it's no better eloquently stated than what Jim put down there. But people don't think of intake in this way. He's telling you how a Ferrari should drive. And it's like,
right.
This is how this is how fancy people eat tea. And you're like, oh, they put their pinkies up and everything. Because the reality is it's hair on fire. Gloria's answering the phone, but she isn't doing it good enough. She's being curt. We're losing calls. What's your take here on this? Because of course this is a great list, but what's your take, Paul?
Yeah, I agree with you. This is sometimes an afterthought, or that's down the road or something
intake,
like that.
Making intake better.
Yeah,
right.
And so the thing I'm looking at, or even just intake in general,
right?
You're starting off. A lot of people, I've got a paralegal who answers the phones and sends emails, and it's just not. It's a line they can cross off the to-do list, but I think numbers 3 and 4 really stood out to me. Great intake departments easily identify and prioritize the clients they want.
Right.
Great intake departments excel at workflow management. These are 2 things that pros will do better than you, better than your secretary, better than your paralegal or anything. This is what they are built for.
Right.
And if these 2 things are done right, you're talking about making money or losing money right there on the phone. I mean, that's good. It's going to happen right there. These 2 things, if nothing else, if you think I don't need this, it doesn't matter, whatever, I can just, have people cover the calls when I'm, at night or on weekends. You're literally leaving money on the table
I
by
agree.
not taking advantage of this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the other points that Jim makes is the experience that a specialist can make, that their sole focus is phones. Your main job is phones.
Yeah.
So the best of your abilities are just driven to prioritizing, making sure people have a good experience on the front end. And really, I think it's interesting because later on, Maddie talks about paying attention, what you measure is what gets enhanced or so if you're paying attention to your leads, then you can improve them. If you're paying attention to the quality of them, then you can improve them. And it reminded me of everyone, in their personal lives is sold on dieting or mindfulness or living a stress-free life. We're all journaling. We're all trying to be better individually. Because we want to be paying attention to the things that matter. But when you run your business, it's almost like you're focused on raw survival. So you're making more animalistic choices and you're not being mindful in the same way you approach your walking life. Like your business's life is at risk because you're not thinking in a mindful way. And I think what mindfulness is in a business sense is intake monitoring, sales, understanding how you can grow, how you make money, how you lose money. You have to understand those things. And if you aren't paying attention, you'll keep going back to a poisoned well, or you'll keep going back to a diet that didn't work, or you keep going back to this, I had a mantra that I used to do before I strangled my clients, and it's like, you need to I've been strangling people a lot. I need to chill. I think, people want to make their lives better, but when it comes to fixing their business, it becomes this overwhelming thing. And I like this post because it says this is how it's supposed to be done. But Maddie is on the front lines talking about the stresses that lawyers are facing, because what you just said, Paul, the paralegals wearing multiple hats, the legal assistants are wearing multiple hats. The lawyer is unfortunately wearing multiple hats. And they feel like they have to because no one else can do it. They're not delegating. They're not serious. They're not descriptive enough in the way that they ask for help or ask for what they need. So I appreciated this article. I thought it was wonderful. Maddie talks on, these points too, but I think what your point is most important. Everyone else's job is at risk if they have to do everyone else's job.
Well said. Well said.
Well, Sultan of SEO, should we just swing on through and hit a home run and head to the interview?
Yeah, I'm going to delegate the rest of this hot take to someone else, and let's go talk to Maddie.
Let's do it, man.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Any lawyer looking to grow their business online can generate more leads from their website by hiring Consultwebs. After working with lawyers exclusively since 1999, we've tested thousands of web designs and marketing strategies, so we know what flips and what flops. For more information, visit www.consultwebs.com today.
And now, a lawsome interview.
Maddie Martin is the head of growth and education at Smith AI, a superior receptionist service for live calls and website chat. She spent the last decade directing the marketing efforts of a diverse range of companies, helping them achieve their goals by applying her excellence in digital marketing, audience building, and business development. But it's her work at Smith AI that brought her to the podcast today, and we're so grateful she could join us. Maddie, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here.
So Smith AI, talk about it. What are the robots taking over? How is machine learning being incorporated into the law firm reception and intake process? Who's losing their job? Is the apocalypse coming? Tell us.
Well, no one's losing their job. I think that people are focusing more on the work that they actually enjoy and that they're good at and they went to school to do and they got hired to do. I mean, just think about the paralegal who is wearing so many hats at a solo or small firm. Think about the receptionists who are doing a million things, and the last thing that they really enjoy doing is answering calls. And frankly, what happens is you end up missing a ton of calls because you have so many responsibilities on your plate. And then you also lose out on work satisfaction because if you're hired to be a paralegal and then you're so slammed answering calls and emails and responding to, web forms that are completed, because responsiveness is the most important thing in terms of determining who hires you for a case or matter. The issue is there's the demand for responsiveness, but there's also the huge plague of the cost of interruptions in your day. So that's what we're addressing. And actually, the AI is empowering really fantastic human receptionists that we hire to do their jobs more accurately and efficiently.
That's awesome. So
Interview done, right?
Yep, done. We'll just wrap it up. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for coming.
It's not that easy.
Well, but
it isn't that easy.
It's hard. But one of the things we've discovered is that people do think it's just answering the phones, and it isn't a sales department. It isn't like this conversion engine. It isn't where you make your referrals stronger. And I like that you brought up the idea that the constant interruptions of running a business prevent you from actually running it.
From getting work done. And frankly, you know what? I think that we all have to evaluate as small business owners why we got into the business in the first place. And for most folks we work with, and we work with small businesses, but also I would say 60% of them are attorneys, which is, why we're on this call today.
Mm-hmm.
And what we know is that, these folks went to law school. They didn't go to business school. They didn't have customer service backgrounds, but they know the importance of responsiveness and friendliness and excellent listening skills, especially when it comes to people who are approaching your firm with an issue that needs to be resolved through legal channels. So the issue is you have a passion and talent for something, but it does require running a business if you want to have control to the point where it's your business and you're not working for a big firm. So that's a lot of the issue that presents itself holistically, is that you have this other dilemma besides the responsiveness and interruptions with sort of a drive to have control over your work, your methods of work, what your practice area is, how many cases you're handling. So there's a lot of focus on having control. But then as a small business owner, you need to also be very thoughtful about what you do need to control, what you want to control that's within your skills, and then really what you're best suited to delegate to people who have better matched skills for things like reception, bookkeeping, office admin, intake, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I want to get a little bit more into that, and I've heard this is from our own experience in doing marketing for lawyers and law firms. I've talked to a lot of clients prospects, I should say, who are like, well, if I can get them on the phone, I'm gonna close that case. I'm gonna get that client. But I've heard on the other side of that, many people who work in intake and stuff saying it's the worst thing in the world for lawyers to answer their own phones. And so it's kind of conflicting because some people are really good at it. Some people aren't. Maybe like you're saying, they shouldn't be spending their time doing this, or they should be brought in at a certain point as a process. So I guess to kind of zoom out on that a little bit, like what misconceptions around intake do you see when someone is onboarding to Smith AI? Like, do people just don't think they have issues, or like I say, lawyers answering their own phones? Like, what's something that's really, really common that you have to deal with like right off the bat?
I think that it comes down to empowerment. So it is absolutely true that many attorneys are great at doing intake and the sell because they know their business in and out. The problem is there is a really high opportunity cost for the attorney to do that sell, because it means that time can't be spent on lawyering, which is really what they're best suited and most valuable doing. So the issue is that when you have people who you are delegating work to and you don't empower them to make good decisions based on the criteria and the directions you've given them, then you don't get as much out of that delegation and you end up disappointed. So my recommendation is always be more aggressive with your delegated tasks, because if you read like Gary Falkowitz's book, for example, which is like the law firm intake Bible, he emphasizes really heavily, and I am totally on the same page here, that you will not regret taking that case and, especially in the personal injury space, being in a point where you can at least review it. But then, if once you review it, you reject it, then you have the means of getting out of that situation. But it's much better to take more cases and regret maybe taking a few that you shouldn't have than rejecting cases too early on and missing out on those sort of sleeper cases you didn't identify properly first that could have been a huge win for you and for the client in using you.
What an amazing, so this is a very interesting, at my old personal injury law firm, there were cases that were hiding behind language that an attorney may know, and there were conflicts that were hiding that an attorney would know. And so the attorney would say, well, that's going to be way too complicated. Can it? And then maybe an intake professional wouldn't know that certain factors were hiding this big case, or there was a whole bunch of insurance that could be stacked up, policies that were hiding, that all you need to do is do a little bit of work to find it, but on the surface it looks bad. So it's really an issue of quality control and sort of taking more than you can handle, and knowing that that's going to be the case, but getting the digestive processes in place to actually eat what you're getting. Because there was certain, because we were doing TV advertisements, so we would get legal calls for everything. Oh, I saw your ad, so can you help me with this estate thing, or I need help looking at this business plan. And so everyone was said, oh my God, please turn off the TV ads. And I was like, no, you dummy.
100%, because you know what? The referrals are valuable to your firm and to your status in the community and to the goodwill that it generates. And if your state allows, referral fees or whatever you're comfortable with. But I would say, I am not saying delegate and ignore. I am saying delegate the first few steps of the funnel, have an agreement in place that allows you the proper out that you need if upon further review, which the agreement just gives you the ability to do, to start looking into the case, you determine there's a conflict or it's not as viable or it's not something that you actually want. You have to have the means to get out of that arrangement, of course. But and the language you use and how strict or how lenient you are with that is totally up to you in your comfort zone, and it can change over time. But I would say immediately that delegation of having people who are deeply specialized in handling the initial conversation, in being great listeners and feeling like your firm is going to take care of that client, because as you're alluding to, many people contact your firm without having any prior experience with lawyers or legal proceedings. So they are uninformed, and there does need to be a lot of that initial education, which, an attorney may find very tiresome to say over and over again, but if it's someone's job to do that onboarding and intake, then they get very comfortable with it. They should naturally be good listeners. They should have the means of using your criteria to qualify cases, which are, let's say, 80% good, right? And they have an 80% accuracy rate. Well, think about the small amount of time then that you need to review for conflicts or fit or whatever. I mean, they're going to screen out those estate related matters at the outset.
Right,
That's
exactly.
not something you're reviewing. It'll be relevant to your firm. But then is there some nuance that you can pick up? Great. If you do so, then you do it. But what you should always do is have a feedback loop when you're delegating, so that if you find there are trends over time and you're consistently handing off that initial qualification and intake process, but you're seeing these cases come through that have a common theme that are not a good fit, well, then what do? You revise your criteria and you feed that back. If you do cases and you have exit interviews, which is an excellent process, then you feed those exit interview completions and the learnings from that back into your intake process. What do you say? You say, we're seeing this trend with these clients during the exit interview process, and we should probably have avoided that case in the beginning. How could we have avoided it? Well, let's take a stab at it and let's retrain our intake team. But there's no firm that has grown without delegation and specialization. There's just no way to grow on your back alone.
Well, but it's not just the idea that you have to delegate, but the idea that you have to be very descriptive. You said aggressive with the way you delegate, but I think what you're meaning is being very descriptive in the front so you can make sure you don't have to worry about it. But what you're talking about is really interesting, because what you can discover in your trash can may be more important than the gold mine you seek. Because, why did they fire you? Why did they leave you? Why couldn't you get this case worked up? Why didn't you see these problems ahead of time? That exit interview is a great strategy, but me and Paul talk about it all the time, is that you have to find someone who's willing to crawl into the dumpster of your data and figure out, is your marketing stuff on point? Is the messaging happening? Are your leads converting? Are they bringing more of this from that? Is there a way you can target it? Is there a way that you can broaden it? All those things that you can think about, the way marketing and intake play together. I love that you kind of said, intake is sort of a chance to educate, but it's also a chance to convert, and it's also a chance to create community goodwill. And it just seems like you have a really holistic take on marketing. And you've obviously done this in different industries, different roles, but now you're the head of growth and education. That's your title. Do you see marketing heading towards education, less selling? Because I think people are failing to realize that you still need to sell. People are like, I'm just going to tell stories, or I'm just going to be a thought leader and it'll just happen, or I'm just going to do good work. I think that law firm owners are scared to sell, but they don't want to waste time educating through content marketing, so they end up doing nothing. So I'm just wondering, marketing wise, making your intake process more thorough, what advice do you have for people? Because you seem to have a really comprehensive view of this stuff. So is it education? Is it selling? Is it hard sell? What is it?
Oh my gosh, I wish we had
a year,
the entire week to talk, because there's so much I want to say.
Sorry.
It's okay. There's just 20 questions that are kind of percolating up from there. No, it's a great problem to have, and maybe we have a follow-up conversation to this where we go a little deeper. But I think that yes, education is key, but it goes hand in hand with asking for what you want. So you have to be clear about why the education is important and why you are an authority, that you have the wherewithal, the means, the ability to help people through education. And as you're helping people better understand the way to run a better business, or improve intake, or better communicate, or best practices that I'm seeing around the country when I travel to solo and small firm conferences, and I do webinars with partners like really brilliant companies like Lawmatics, for example. They have brilliant intake software. Well, how great is it to bring these minds together and say, we're seeing this at the top of the funnel, and Lawmatics is seeing this data once the new clients are coming in, what marketing channels are converting the best, and you put together this very full picture of the lead to client life cycle, right? That is powerful. But I think that there is this sense of overwhelm where you don't know where to get started. So I think education needs to be distilled to actionable steps and not just theoretical. I also think that it needs to come from, and there is more support for this than ever, the people who are on the front lines. Initially, when I started getting into lawyer education, I felt some pushback from some of the bar associations and the institutions that I was pitching, basically saying, I have this information to share that we're seeing help attorneys. And they sometimes said to me, no, Maddie, you're a vendor. We have a very fine line. And I thought, well, but I have all the data and proof that shows what works to best serve your membership. So there is more adoption of experts and giving them the platform that they need to best reach the attorneys who need their help. And I think that bar associations are doing a great job of getting those experts in front of their members. And in a lot of these communities like Maximum Lawyer that are growing, I mean, they're surging, where it's built out of a podcast or a Facebook group or, other areas where we're breaking down barriers and people nationwide can share best practices in a way they never could before. The access to each other is greater than ever through webinars and through these Facebook groups. But it's really important that there is, through education, actionable steps and focus. It's really broken down into manageable parts. And I think that the best way of sharing that is with examples of firms similar to yours so that people can, at least for me, I learn through visuals and through mimicry and through sort of that example-driven approach. And I think also that helps build courage because, talking about the language that we're using in creating these intake systems and new processes, the word that I should have used instead of aggressive is courageous, because there has to be a starting point. And there is a lot of analysis paralysis or just plain paralysis when it comes to the intake process, the communication process, adding in technology, because for better or worse, in legal related businesses, there's not only the challenge of running a small business, which has a high likelihood of failure, just the nature of being a small business and competing in the marketplace. But the second thing is that with the ethical obligations that lawyers have, much like financial planners and medical professionals with HIPAA, there is an added obligation to your business that makes it even harder, and the odds are even more stacked against you because there is this obligation that often breeds fear. And what fear results in is inaction. So the education is to empower action. And if you don't educate your clients and your referral partners about the types of cases that you want and the types of work that you do, then you don't get what you want, but that's on you.
So we were talking a little bit before about referral partners, and I'd like to ask you about that again. And it's a stumbling block, I think, for a lot of clients, and sometimes I think it's just a time management thing. It's tough. People think like referrals and networks, and I got to be, posting videos on LinkedIn
Yeah, the
or whatever it
analysis
is.
paralysis. It's a great word.
Yeah. So I mean, like, how you said that you can't grow your business through referrals, right? Is that have I
No,
no?
no.
What
So
was it?
that's why everyone got on my case at Maximum Lawyer, because that was the assumption that that's what I was saying. Oh, you guys. So, okay.
No.
So
So
tell me,
It's a
correct me.
sustainable growth, right? I mean,
Is that what we're talking
it
about?
is okay. So the title of my presentation, you teed me up so perfectly. So, and you'll learn. I don't know. I get riled up, I guess, kind of easily.
oh, I
But
love it. Yeah, we do too.
So do
So,
we. Yeah, absolutely.
so my title was Referrals Are Not a Growth Strategy. And what I mean by that is referrals are essential to the law firm, but are typically not approached strategically. And the way to do referrals really well is to have a strategy that drills down into very actionable tactics that set towards measurable goals. And what I mean by that is look at the referral channels that are best for you, that are generating the best clients, whether you're part of a BNI group, which is like a networking breakfast maybe every week. And let me tell you, those are old school, but they still work. And maybe you're part of a Facebook group like in Maxim Lawyer, I see all the time, is there someone who can help with this type of case in Louisville or Miami or St. Louis, right? So people are asking for these referrals, but taking a look at the best referral channels and partners and law firms or specific individuals, and then the ones that are not performing as well, and doubling down on generating more referral partners like those. The other thing is being proactive in making referrals, because the golden rule absolutely applies here. Treat people the way that you want to be treated. So put on your website and delegate to your frontline staff who are on the phones, on web chat, on email. People contact you and say, do you do this? I don't, but I know someone great who does. And take every opportunity to educate potential referral partners or future clients. So if you're on the phone or you're on a chat and you have someone who is communicating on your behalf, or it happens to be you, give them the ability to see into your referral, your spreadsheet, let's say, of your referral partners by practice area or location or whatever, and make referrals based on that criteria. If it's, let's say, an estate, wills, probate matter, refer to this firm I recommend. Great, someone can do that on your behalf. They can also say during that same conversation, by the way, Attorney Jane does family law. So if you have a need for, such and such case or matter type in the future, please keep us in mind. We are taking new clients in the Atlanta metro area or whatever the case may be. So take that step of educating, but also a quality referral can help you build your brand online for better establishing what you actually do and want to focus on. So people who find your firm are more and more likely over time to find you for the right reasons and right practice areas. It's not uncommon to see testimonials that say, you know what, I didn't end up hiring Attorney Jane, but she gave me a referral to a phenomenal lawyer who I ended up loving working with. Right. So that is testimonial worthy. And we find that people, the same way that you review a restaurant based on service alone sometimes and not even the food, we find that people are promoting your business because of a great experience. And that can be just someone who contacted you and not even a client. Now, the second thing that I would say here as the tactical approach is looking at your practice area and determining, how can I expand my referral network, not only by, things that you can only do personally, attending that breakfast, writing articles, participating in the Maximum Lawyer Facebook group. There are some things that you're not going to delegate necessarily, being the expert as the attorney, right? But then there are other things that you can do that say, you know what, I'm going to put my referral list on my website, and I'm going to delegate the outreach to all those people to have someone make phone calls for me to every attorney who's on my website and say, call this firm, tell them that I'm recommending them. I want to make sure they're still practicing in the same areas, that I'm accurately, referring clients to them. And then after you generate all that goodwill, the call to action there is, would you also, consider referring clients to me? Is this something that could be, reciprocated? Are you comfortable with that? Can I share any information about what I do to help you make quality referrals, for your own firm? And that can be a request that's made. And there are certain practice areas that lend themselves better to that approach. Family law and estate and areas of life and business and law, where there are people who are going to be in the same sort of life cycle stage, let's say, in their 40s and thinking about their wills, they have a family, that's going to be a strong referral community. Whereas, PI is much harder. You're going to be not probably reaching out to friends and family if you have a PI matter. It's more about the awareness of the brand, the phone number, the TV commercials, like that sort of institutional, knowledge that's in the atmosphere. So, take a look at your practice area and see how well aligned it is to growing through referrals. And then think about the channels that perform best for you and try and expand on those as much as possible.
So digging in a little bit more on that, we advocate all the time to do, kind of peer-to-peer referrals, B2B, lawyer to lawyer, law firm to law firm.
Chiropractor to PI attorney.
Well, yeah, sure, exactly. But some of the, nice. But some of the ones, that we've been looking at now is it, how do you ask clients for referrals? How do you shake that tree? And something that Jake and I talked about a while ago, was, when he was at the law firm, he would ask clients, do you ever come back to our website? Like after we were done with the case, do you ever come back? Do you ever read our newsletter? And it was like, no. You know what I mean? So is there,
well,
it wasn't, hey,
I thought somebody was reading that newsletter. It was just me.
It was, and me.
Yeah. It depends on practice area too. If you're in an immigration law firm, you are probably, very interested to read that newsletter or to forward it to your community, because that is news you can use. It's harder if it's just sort of a box you're checking every month to send out a newsletter.
True. And it's kind of a thing too, where it's like, I'm not sure how much, after someone has, wrapped up this matter and, payouts have been dealt with and they've moved on with their life. Like I can see where they're coming from. I don't necessarily, need to keep contact with this, but I mean, is there a way to stay in front of clients and make sure they know, like, this is this helps me. This is, you're going to help your friend or your family member or whatever by referring them to a quality, legal advisor or something? Or is it, I guess I'm just asking, like, is there, when you're talking about looking at the different channels, this is just something Jake and I have been kicking around, like, is just straight up going right to your clients and asking them for referrals. Is it worthy of time, or is it like, look, you might get one or two. There's nothing for it.
Or what we were joking, like a monthly newsletter that you send out, or birthday cards, or some kind of touch point, know. Yeah.
I love birthday cards.
Totally.
I love that proactive, feel good marketing. As insofar as it's within your means, what do you actually give? Do you send a card, or do you send a gift, or is there a gift after a case wraps up, for example, if you're and it really has to do with timing, and it has to do with practice area, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the thing: timing is universally important and works in every practice area. A case wraps up. And that's the time when you ask for, when the sentiment is highest, most strong, you ask for the testimonial. You ask for the review. You do the exit interview, and you say, if you were happy, and you only ask that to people who you have a strong feeling that they're happy. We would love a testimonial from you. Our business runs, like, lives and breathes and dies by referrals, and you are the best mouthpiece, because you can speak to the experience of working for us, and they're going to say, absolutely, I would recommend you. I'd be happy to write a testimonial. If they do so, a great way to get that online is to say, thank you so much. Here's what you wrote. Would you be willing to, post it on Google or on Avo or whatever you're using, and give them the easiest access to do that work for you. Having a phone call and saying, hey, could you post, a review on Google? Maybe they're not going to do that. But if you send them an email where they can literally copy and paste the words that they've already written, and you link to your Google page, then that's pretty darn easy. You're removing a lot of the barriers. So that is my recommendation there. And I would say, when it comes to keeping your brand alive for past clients, it also is a function of a couple different things. One is there opportunity for a continued relationship that pays you for future legal services? So that may be the case with estate. It may be the case with immigration if there are other family members who need help. It may be the case with family law. It may be the case with business. Absolutely, landlord tenant. You do an eviction notice and that person manages 10 other properties. Well, that's a long-term relationship. So take a look at your practice area and say, what is my likelihood of having a repeat client? And that will inform your strategy, post casework as well. And then also, I would say it's important to stay top of mind, but the frequency with which you do that is how useful you are in that content with that level of frequency. Like if it is PI, it's probably a really nice gift and a happy birthday message or a case completion anniversary, card or gift once a year or something like that. I know family law attorneys who are, the anniversary of the divorce or something, they
Right.
take a kind of humored approach to it. There are different anniversaries to celebrate beyond just like someone's birthday. Like your for immigration, citizenship anniversary, things like that can be a wonderful reminder. And you can say in that note, where our law firm is thriving and the best new clients come from past clients. And, we're always grateful for referrals. So, and maybe if you charge for consultations, certain referrals of yours could, have the ability to give their friends and family a free consultation or something like that, something of value that encourages them to take that next action that you're most keen for them to take.
So before we wrap up, I have one question, and I think it's important because it touches on a lot of aspects, because we're talking about, oh my gosh, the $1 million case is hiding, the TBI, of a dancer, that lost her legs in some commercial submarine accident. It's there. You just got to be able to look for it. But really the story is you get a lot of cases that stink. Or you get crazy people who are like, I'm trying to sue my pants, and you're like, how do you help your lawyers reject cases and not lose that referability? Because I think the reason why everybody's up in arms is because they're like, my work is the thing that refers people. And it isn't. It's your actions and their experiences. And so what I think is maybe a lot of people take cases on that they can't help, but they don't want to say, I can't help. Or you don't want to pass around a bad referral. So how do you tell people, it was what we called in my marketing department, telling someone they have an ugly baby. Like there's no cool way to tell somebody that they don't have a legal issue. So how do you help people deal with rejection and still like keep kind of referability in at the core of their behavior?
I think that well, first of all, I think that the screening and delegation of that is the number one most important thing.
Right.
That you need to have a basic set of criteria that you use, and also appropriate marketing channels that are protecting your time and your staff's time, because I'm not saying just open up the skies and let it rain and if you've got a leaky roof,
it's all good.
Set up buckets all over your house.
Start drinking from it. Yeah.
No, I'm saying, set up like that initial screen and the tarp on your roof, and then when you have the money, fix the roof and put up that like solid structure, but you don't get to the solid structure tomorrow. You need to say, how big are these raindrops? What do we need to let in? What do the gutters look like, right? So what are we trapping in the gutters that we actually should have thought about beforehand? So it's really important that you are protecting the time and empowering your team to make good decisions, but not getting so caught up in being a perfectionist about it that you never delegate because you just haven't gotten enough data. And there's always that one little special snowflake case that, you should or should not have taken. Mistakes will be made, but focus on not making mistakes on the actual lawyering, on the casework, and allow yourself mistakes for learning and refining the process, because that's the only way you can do so is just by getting started and saying, here's what we're going to screen in and out. And we're going to take a look at every quarter the cases that we missed that we wish we got, the cases that we took that we wish we rejected or referred, and have a script for rejecting, and have as much as possible the rejections, if they're reasonable and not going to upset someone with a referral or waste their time, because that makes you a great referral partner. Have that in place, but have a process in place for review so that you are systematizing your learning and your evolution of your firm, and not just setting up a process and saying, Maddie said, just get started, and then you've been doing the same thing for 5 years. That's not what I'm recommending. I'm saying get started and have a highly iterative process that is systematized, that says every quarter we take a look at our criteria, what's working, what's not, what are the exit interviews showing, how much money do we make, what cases surprised us in a good or bad way, and how does that change our approach next quarter? And where are we going to be spending money? Because the clients who come from this channel are not reading our website, and maybe we have online calendaring on our website, but we need to start charging for consultations because people are booking us willy-nilly and they're wasting our time, right? And for the clients who are really serious, well, we will, credit that consultation fee to the first bill if they hire us. So it's actually no extra payment for the most serious folks. Or for people who are, you're working on just contingency fees and there's no money paid up front, what questions do we really need to ask? What do we need to investigate early to make sure that we are going with the cases that are most likely to be a good fit for our firm and most lucrative and most, the highest chance of us succeeding for the client. So it needs to be a process-driven but action-oriented approach where you are getting started, you're iterating, and you are using data to inform rather than anecdotes or just that one case gave you such a bad experience and now everything you're doing is reacting to that. Take a step back, look at what the numbers say, and also be very careful about spending your energy on the channels that best perform. And this, if you are doing like advertising or PPC or broader channels where the people who are finding out about your firm, maybe it's TV ads or whatever, they're coming to your site and they don't know as much about you as a referral does, which would be, I guess, the opposite of that potential client, then make sure that your intake team, your screening criteria, your form on your website is doing the right filtering as early as possible. And the example I give there is check out some of the forms that are done by really savvy attorneys who are not just saying, give us your name, email, phone number, and a message with a huge text box, but instead, for like, let's say a criminal defense attorney, tell us, is there a court date scheduled? When is it? So you have a sense of the priority. Give us a little bit of information on, what is, the nature of the case or what's being accused or alleged. So that is critical to get early on to make a good follow-up and good decision making without, hearing someone's life story then twice. And the second thing that I would say is generate better leads by having sort of educational or lead magnet, so to speak, content that brings in the best potential clients. And a great example of that I'll leave you with is in the landlord-tenant space. There's a firm called Tri-City Legal in Chicago. They have an eviction notice that's built on, an online form. You can use Typeform, Gravity Form, whatever. And it maps to, when the form is completed, an eviction notice that is emailed to the lead with steps for submitting it to the court for a landlord to have an eviction notice go out properly and legally. And then it captures the time frame. So is it a 5-day notice or a 21-day notice, whatever the case may be? What county is it in? Tons of information around the amount of rent that's due, for how long, how many tenants, etc. And the attorney, the law firm, can have very targeted follow-up to someone who they know must be a landlord, so they're already within their target audience, who has an issue that they know they help with, which is evictions, and they can follow up based on the time frame. Let's say it's a 5-day notice, after 3 or 4 days, and say, how did that eviction go? Do you need help with it? Do you have questions? Is there any other thing that we can do to help you? Did that form do what you needed it to do? And I mean, you're already giving something that is helpful, free, automated, so it doesn't interrupt you to have someone complete it, and giving you an incredible, well-targeted potential client. So that's the sort of stuff that really moves the needle and gets you at the top of your marketing funnel, the people who are most worth your time in terms of that follow-up, that nurturing, that money spent to get people aware of your firm and what you do, instead of just, blanket advertising that may not do enough to inform. This is really demonstrating through action and through a freebie, which is a lead magnet, what you will do for them as their lawyer if they hire you.
It looks great. I'm on the site right now. It looks beautiful. So people want to learn more about you, Maddie. We could keep going. This was like marketing 101. I feel it's like, whoa, man, this is good. They're so lucky to have you over there at Growth and Education. People want to know more about reception intake, how you can help them. How can they learn more about Smith AI, Maddie?
So visiting smith.ai, which is our website, you can live chat with us, you can call us or email us, you can even instantly sign up for our web chat service. And and very quickly, within 1 to 2 days, sign up for our virtual receptionist service where we do inbound and outbound calls, including that initial screening, lead qualification, calendaring, and taking payments even by phone. And we have month-to-month plans, so you are not locked in. It's super flexible, which is obviously in line with what I'm recommending, the ability to iterate over time. We will grow and flex with you. Plans start at $60 to $70 per month, depending on if you use our staff on your website to live chat or by phone to answer and return calls. We have a special promo code also for your listeners.
Ooh.
So you, in addition to the 10 call, 5 chat free trial that's up to 30 days, you also will get $50 off your first month of calls or chats with the code LAWSOME50, LAWSOME50. So after the trial, you can use that. And it's basically good for, we're talking 2 months of basic service, just to see what it's all about and how we can help you. The best way is to give it a try.
5 questions we ask everyone.
What was the last book you read?
Oh, well, I reread Falkowitz's Law Firm Intake. I think it's like the complete guide to law firm intake. 100% recommend that.
I like the movie better, but the book's okay.
Mini series. All right. Number 2. What's your favorite place?
Ooh, I would say Hanoi. The absolute best food in the best food country in the world, which is Vietnam.
Awesome.
And I mean, I think you can tell I'm a high energy person. So the frenzy of all the mopeds, plus they have like this egg cream coffee that's just to die for. So that plus delicious, barbecue pork sandwiches and a really friendly culture and beautiful environment. Man, you can't beat Vietnam and Hanoi in particular.
Awesome.
Nice. Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
So I have talked about Maximum Lawyer Community. They have a podcast. They have a conference that was phenomenal this last year in St. Louis, which is another one of my favorite places, actually. I really love what Chelsea Lambert is doing at Lex Tech Review, Legal Tech Marketing Group. She also is launching a new service for CLE accreditation. So if you're interested in getting into education, that is a huge opportunity for your firm as an attorney or as a vendor provider within the legal space. Mm-hmm. I also love what Lawyerist and Attorney Sync are doing. Man, there are too many. It's a wealth of great content that's out there right now. I'm not going to hit on everything that's kind of running through my brain, but those are some of my favorites by far.
Yeah, definitely. Number 4, if you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
It has to be mustard. I feel like I put mustard on everything. I like tangy things.
That is like one of the most popular answers.
Makes sense.
Mustard is well loved, and we agree. We'll accept that. Number 5, after a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
Well, I love to cook. I went to culinary school. And for anyone who was at the Maximum Lawyer Conference, that was actually how they introduced me, which probably threw a lot of people off. But I thought that was maybe the most bizarre introduction I've ever received at a legal event. People, I was talking about speaking with authority, and they're thinking, who the heck is this chick? But I guess I would say that there's a recipe for everything. But I do love to cook, and I am fortunate that it is summer here in Buffalo, so I'm not just eating root vegetables like a person who's been in the frozen tundra the other half of the year. So summer is a good time for me to really exercise my cooking chops.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsonepodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawson.